Some days your planning period is real, and some days it's basically imaginary. Because the truth is, prep time or planning time on paper does not always equal what it is in real life, especially when you teach lab-based classes where setup, materials, tech, and safety routines are part of the job. And if you've ever thought, my prep got eaten, so I guess I'll do the important stuff at home, I want to offer you something different today. Not a perfect routine, a realistic one, because your routine should work on messy days, not just on the mythical day where no one needs you, nothing breaks, and every computer logs in instantly. Welcome to the Secondary Teacher Podcast, the podcast for middle and high school teachers juggling multiple preps to get the strategies to reduce overwhelm so that you don't have to choose between being an effective teacher and prioritizing important relationships. I'm your host, Kristen Masick, a 10-year high school engineering teacher, former middle school assistant principal, and teacher coach. Every week, we will discuss strategies, systems, and time-saving tips to help you not only survive but thrive as a multiple prep teacher. There were a lot of times in my teaching career where I was actually grateful if I had a lab-based class right after my planning period. Now, you can either relate to that, or maybe you're thinking, wait, wouldn't that make prep worse? Yes, and also no. The good part was obvious. If I had a lab-based class after my prep period, I could set things up during that time instead of trying to sprint through setup in a 4 to 5 minute passing period. So if we were doing something that needed materials, which they usually did, or a demo or equipment, robots, tools, parts, anything like that, prep gave me the time to actually get the room ready. Or sometimes it wasn't even the physical setup. Sometimes it was tech. I remember one day during first period when all my students went to log in, and instead of jumping into the lesson I had planned, we had to completely switch gears while we waited on a Windows update. Just sitting there, waiting, watching that little circle, or I guess it's like the words when it was saying welcome in a lot of different languages, come across the screen. And I knew right then, if I don't fix this before the next group comes in, because for some reason the Windows updates were assigned or they had to do with the student login, it was going to be chaos. Or there were days when we were trying to do some programming with our robots and there was a software update like version 2.7a or something. And I'd have to make a choice, either switch gears for the entire period and lose a lesson, or have 4 students share one computer while I put sticky notes or taped signs on the monitors of all the computers I needed to update during my prep period. That kind of prep use is valid. It helps students, it prevents a mess, it's not wasted. But here's the downside. When your prep period becomes setup time, it becomes your top priority and everything else quietly goes to the bottom. And because setup is visible and urgent, it's easy for it to take your whole planning period. Not because you're lazy, not because you're disorganized, because setup has a built-in pressure. If it isn't ready, class won't run. So I'd take my time. I'd get everything just right. I'd handle the tech. I'd check the materials. I'd test the thing I needed to test. And then I'd realize the bell was about to ring. And I didn't touch grading, feedback, planning, directions, rubrics, anything that would make my future self lighter. And you know what? I just accept it. I trudge through my to-do list and know that by the end of the day, I was going to be filling up that crate of things to take home with me. Remember that crate I mentioned in the previous episode? Yeah, that one. And that's when I learned something that applies to every teacher, not just lab teachers. If your planning routine only works when your prep is uninterrupted, it's not a routine. It's a wish. Now, here's the other piece of this that I didn't fully understand until I became an administrator. When it comes to the master scheduling, admin usually don't know which classes take more setup than others. They're looking at sections, enrollment numbers, teacher availability, not whether your robotics class needs 15 minutes of tech troubleshooting before students walk in. So you can't wait for someone else to solve this problem. You have to build a routine that works with the reality you have. Here's the truth. Your planning routine should work on the messy days because those are the days you have most often. Here's the trap. If you wait until you sit down in your prep period. To decide what to do, your brain will pick whatever feels most urgent in that moment. In a lab environment, urgent is almost always setup and tech. So instead of asking, what should I do today during prep, when your brain is already in motion, make one decision ahead of time. What is my default plan if my prep gets hijacked? Not a perfect plan, a default. Because when the day is loud, you don't need more options. You need fewer. Now, in episode 316, I talked about the 3-filter method for deciding what to focus on. And that's where you ask, is this task recurring? Does it impact students soon? Does it have to be done by me? If it passes those filters, it's probably your anchor task. And the reason I like that mentioned is because it's fast. When you're overwhelmed, you don't need a complicated decision-making framework. You just need clarity. So the goal here is speed and clarity. You want a routine that helps you choose quickly and then finish something. This is the heart of the episode, and I want to be honest with you. This is something I wish I had done when I was in the classroom. I didn't have these routines built out. I just reacted to whatever the day threw at me. But looking back, if I had created 3 tiny routines, one for 15 minutes, one for 30, and one for 60, I think I would have saved myself so much stress and so many nights hauling that crate home. So here's what I recommend. If you have 15 minutes, this is not catch-up time. This is close one loop time. So here are some options of things that you can pick, but feel free to come up with your own. You can write tomorrow's directions and success criteria. Simple, clear, done. Prep one demo or example so you're not winging the first 5 minutes of class. Grade a small set, like the next 8 to 10 you can finish completely. Create a quick checklist for the next project so students can self-manage. A 15-minute prep isn't where you rebuild your whole week. It's where you reduce mental noise by finishing one small thing. If you have 30 minutes, this is anchor task plus a tiny bonus time. Choose one anchor task that passes your filters, recurring, impacts students soon, has to be you, and give it 25 minutes. Then use 5 minutes for the bonus. Set up for the first step for tomorrow. Write the next action on a sticky note. Cue the file you need, or reset one station so tomorrow starts smoothly. In a lab-based world, that bonus step matters because future smoothness is a real form of planning. If you have 60 minutes or your full prep, this is where you can do a full anchor task and handle setup intentionally. And this is important. If you know setup is going to happen anyway, stop letting it expand until it eats your whole prep. Try this structure. 35 to 40 minutes anchor task, grading, feedback, directions, rubric assessment, something with the finish line. 20 to 25 minutes setup and tech. That way, setup stays supported, but it doesn't become the only thing you did. Because what you want is to walk out of your prep knowing you finished something that reduces the weight you're carrying. Now, this next part is the part that keeps your routines working long term. Before you leave, or I guess end your planning period, no matter how short it was, do a 2-minute end cap. Now, I developed this strategy later as a coach after reading Tanya Dalton's book On Purpose and hearing about Dr. Robin Jackson's version of the daily stand-up meeting when I became an administrator. The 2-minute end cap is basically like a personal daily stand-up. Here's what you do. Write the next step in one sentence. Tomorrow during prep, I will blank. Park your unfinished tasks somewhere intentional, not in your brain, not in 10 open tabs, one place. This can be as simple as a sticky note. Reset the starting point. Close the tabs you're done with, put the rubric where you'll find it, put the materials in the spot that makes sense. This end cap is how you stop living in half-started, and it's also how you build trust with yourself because you're leaving breadcrumbs for the version of you who will be tired tomorrow. If your prep gets hijacked because you're setting up a lab, fixing tech, or preventing chaos, I want you to hear this. That is real teaching work. That matters. But you also matter. And if every prep becomes make class function, you're going to keep carrying, grading, and planning home. Not because you didn't try, but because your system has no smaller plan for messy days. A smaller plan isn't lowering your standards, it's honoring reality. And when you can finish one meaningful thing, even on a chopped up day, you start to feel that intentional shift from I'm drowning to I'm still steering. Before your next work week, write 3 tiny routines. My 15-minute plan is blank. My 30-minute plan is blank. My 60-minute plan is blank. Put them somewhere you'll actually see them. The next time prep gets hijacked, don't spiral. Don't default to, I guess nothing gets done. Run the smaller plan. Finish one thing and let that be enough for today. If today's episode was helpful to you, it could be for others. So make sure you share it with your colleagues and tag me on Instagram at Kristen Masick, KHristenMassic. Until next week.